back to powerful advancements that manufacturers can make now. And in this third part of our webinar series, we're going to cover Power BI and how that can uncover new opportunities and new insights that you did not have before. In the past two episodes, we talked about Power Apps and Power Automate, and both of those tools also create data. So when you think about unlocking data, you really do need to think about what am I making both sort of one-off solutions as well as those organizational solutions or enterprise solutions like an ERP or a WMS. And the power of Power Automate and Power BI, really Power BI, is that it can all come in together to drive a single place where you can look at and see all of the data all at once. So what we've heard in the past is that there are a lot of data silos still within organizations, that there are disconnected data sources, and this really hinders informed decision making. We want to enable customers through Power BI to make decisions faster, and we don't want to be able to make the decision a month after an incident occurred. Let's try to make that decision before the incident occurs even. So the idea behind Power BI is that you want the ability to notice and identify trends and to be inspired to uncover new things and pursue new opportunities. But also beyond that, there's a component of Power BI that is really about modernizing your data, right? So more than getting it out of Excel files and into something that's more structured, but also adding to it, maybe enriching it, maybe finding some industry data sets to incorporate to understand better within the context of your industry, where do I sit as a manufacturer or as a distributor. Today I have with me Jonathan Shelley. He is a solution architect on our business analytics team. And I'd like him to take us through what really is Power BI and the different flavors, let's say, of Power BI. And then we can talk through some of the examples of what you've done with that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dag. Power BI is actually not just one tool, but it's actually a suite of tools that can be used to develop not just reports, not even analytics, but an information hub as well. One of the biggest bonuses of using Power BI is that it is compatible with so many different data sources. As Dag was saying, it can break down your silos very easily, but also allow you to bring in additional information from websites or other files. So it integrates very well with multiple data sets and allows you to pull that all together into one integrated set. And within that tool, you have multiple ways of structuring that data and accessing that data. If you're looking to develop new data sets in new reports and analytics tools, you have Power BI Desktop. You also have Power BI Service, which is a cloud-based platform that you can use for publishing and sharing. You have the ability to not only create the data sets, which can be shared across multiple platforms, not just Power BI, but also in Excel or other visualization tools, but you can also set up data flows, which is a larger data set that people can use to create their own relationships, their own metrics to do some ad hoc reporting. The benefit of a data set is you predefine those relationships and those metrics so everybody's seeing the same information in the same way at the same time. No more arguing in front of the CEO about what the right sales number is. With the data flow, though, you can give your super users better access to the data so they can do the deeper dives and really get into asking the why questions and coming up with actionable items. So when we talk about Power BI, we're not just talking about one piece of software. We're talking about a true business intelligence platform contained under one name.
Awesome. Wow. You just enlightened me there on the true capabilities of Power BI. I think, as far as where I used to be, I used to use SSRS or SQL Server Reporting Services for a lot of things. And I'm wondering, where do you see that fit? And could you compare SSRS to Power BI? What's the difference?
With SSRS, you really had to pre-aggregate the data, and there wasn't a lot of availability to drill in. Now, I know some people out there are going to say, well, no, you can do a lot of that with SSRS. Yes, you can. I've done it myself, but it's not a really well supported function. Power BI is specifically designed to give you that drill in capability so you can get right down to the transactional level and isolate particular incidents, and gives you the flexibility of visualizations that you can use so that you can look at information many different ways to get a lot of different slices of the information that you're looking at.
Awesome. Yeah. So it seems like there's something for organizations to look at, certainly, is not only replacing, let's say, an Excel report with Power BI, but also looking at those other traditional reporting tools, whether that's a Crystal Reports or Power or SSRS, and looking at how can that be upgraded and enhanced into a Power BI report. Am I right?
Absolutely, absolutely. In my 10 years of working in the Microsoft Business Intelligence space, we've moved things from several different environments, and there are a lot of great tools out there. Don't get me wrong; we're not here to bash any tools, but Power BI does give you the most flexibility with the most functionality for the price of any tool out there. And that's why Power BI has been recognized by Gartner as the industry leader since its launch in 2014. So it's a fantastic tool. And one thing I will say very quickly, if I can, a lot of people hear Microsoft Analytics and they still think cubes and MDX, and they have those nightmares about the multidimensional databases. Power BI is not built on that technology. It is a tabular relational database that has full functionality to be able to drill through, and is a much more user friendly system for business users and IT developers to get in and work with without having to learn a very difficult language.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, can you tell me a little bit about? I believe that you were going to highlight a certain manufacturer and what we've done over there.
Oh, yes, gladly. So this is a manufacturer that I've been working with for a number of years, and we first started having the conversation around why they were not increasing their efficiencies. They were doing okay. They were barely making their goals and could not meet their stretch goals at all. And like many manufacturers, they didn't have a centralized data set. At the end of the shift, they were relying on the operators and the line leaders to put stuff into Excel and then have somebody compile the information from all of these different Excel files. And by the time the leadership was getting the information, it might be 2 days later. And it's really too late to go back and ask questions and do any digging in. So we started by pulling in their MES data so that we could track in near real time how they were doing, and not just at an overall plant level, but we could look at each machine on each one of their lines to see how they were performing. We were able to take that information and put that into a dashboard that would update every 10 minutes that then leadership could be using, and they put these on screens throughout the facility so that anybody at any point could look at these screens and say, oh, wow, this particular line or this particular machine is having an issue right now. We need to get somebody over there to take a look at it. From there, we were able to enhance. We started adding in documentation, production notes, customer complaint information, and we were adding hyperlinks into our reports so that they could say, hey, here's the next job that's coming up. And the last time we ran this, we got a customer complaint. Here's the information. You click the hyperlink, it takes you right in there. You see all of the information, any attachments, and what was done to resolve the issue. Same thing with any type of machine retooling that needed to be done, or other notes that operators or the specialists, the mechanics, would find helpful. From there, we were even able to start pulling in their scheduling information so we could look ahead and say, okay, next shift, we're going to have to retool these machines. Here are the specifications. Now the mechanics, they know exactly what they need to do. They can get their tools ready. By the time the changeover comes up, they're on site right there with all the tools they need, all the information. And we just kept building from there, pulling in information from different sources, different file types, putting in goals, tracking performance information, so that we could make better stretch goals for the team, and the amount of information that they have has actually kind of become almost overwhelming because we've got their quality control measures in there, so we can track the last 20 times somebody did their measurements on the line. Are they trending okay? Are they starting to drift out of control? Do we need to send out an alert? So the wealth of information that we were able to put in there has been astonishing. Now we're even moving into looking at inventory and customer order status. We're tracking scrap rates so that they can do better prediction on how much material they actually need to run to produce the number of widgets that they need to produce so that they can become more efficient in their scheduling, their supply materials, or their supply ordering of materials, and even their financial reporting. We've been able to increase that because now the finance department is getting actual measurements of material used as opposed to going to what the bill of materials says and estimating what their expenses are. That has saved their team countless hours each month in physical inventory time, having to go through and weigh and measure everything to determine what was actually used. Now they have it straight from the MES, and we're able to compute that and spit it out for their reports for month close on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's incredible. So tell me a little bit about security. I mean, if we have people pulling up reports from maybe even their cell phones when they're in line at Starbucks, where can you tell me more about the security aspects as well as maybe some of the data level security that's inside of Power BI?
Now that is a great question, Dag, and I'll see if I can get to all of this in the time that we have. There is a lot going on with security in Power BI because there are a number of ways of being able to store your data. The particular client that we're talking about, they actually keep all of their data on premise. They have it in an analysis services tabular model on one of their servers, so everything is behind their firewall. No data actually ever goes out into the cloud. All you're getting in Power BI is just the aggregated information you need for the report that you're running at the time. And even that data is encrypted at 256 bit. Um, you have a dedicated channel that is used to connect to that data. It's called a gateway, and that is the only way to get in. And it only has access to that database. So even if, on the off chance, somebody were able to hack into that gateway, they still don't have access to anything else on your network other than this reporting database. If you do push the information up into Power BI service and store it in the cloud, you've got the exact same security there that you would have with Microsoft Azure or Azure Synapse Analytics, which is that very robust Microsoft encryption where the data is encrypted one way, passwords are encrypted another way, the actual connection strings are encrypted in a different fashion. So all three parts that you would need in order to do anything with that data is stored individually in different encryption models. Now
Um,
you had asked about data level security as well, which is another great function of Power BI, is that you can actually create row level security within the application. So based on a user's login, you can control what information they can see. For example, if you're doing a sales report and you want sales reps to only see their information, you can set that up based on their login that they only get to see the information associated with them. However, managers need to see a higher level. So let's say you have regional managers. They can see all of the sales reps under them, but nobody else. Corporate can see everybody. Everybody has the same data, same metrics, same definitions, but a different view. And you can actually set those up so that as people log in, it automatically defaults to their information. If you've got sensitive information in tables that you only want certain people to be able to access, same thing. You can add row level security to that. And let's say you have some HR information in a model. Not only do they have to be specifically given access to that report, but you can also control within that model who even has access to see that table even exists. If you set up row level security and you are not in that role, you don't even know that data is there. You can't see it, it doesn't exist to you. It
mhm.
only exists in the role that you've been given.
That's awesome. I mean, some really powerful capabilities that you wouldn't find in Excel or some other tools. You had mentioned that some of these reports are refreshing every 10 minutes. Is it possible to handle streaming data? And, can you describe how that would happen? I mean, I bet there's scenarios where 10 minutes is not fast enough.
There definitely are. There definitely are. And going back to mentioning data flows, those are great for streaming data and pulling in data in real time and pushing it out into the reports. Power BI does support direct query modeling, which allows you to connect live to any data source and pull that information in at query time. So if somebody's going in and running a report, say against one of these data flows that is using a streaming service, you would be seeing the information exactly as it exists at that point in time. There's no noticeable or no substantial lag time between when that data is created and when that data is visible in Power BI. So if you do have instances where you need that real-time information, Power BI is absolutely set up to accommodate that, even in very large and very complex data sets.
Very interesting. So, um, tell me a little bit about how Power BI could enable self service. And by that, I mean, once the data goes into Power BI, it's not just IT that can access it or to make a new report, right? My understanding is that really as a power user, just like as a power user in Power Apps, I would have the ability to access data. You brought up that data set term and be able to create just a brand new report. Maybe there is some sort of, quality issue and I want to have a specific, report centered around this one quality issue. And I could possibly do that without T. Is that true, Jonathan?
That is absolutely true, and that's one of the big success stories that we have around user adoption is the ability to go in and create your own views or even your own reports. Additionally, within the Power BI workspace, the cloud service, designated users, you have to give them this permission, but it is built-in functionality,
Mm-hmm.
can actually copy or edit existing reports. So, for example, as you were stating, Dag, there's a quality issue that you need to look into. You can make a copy of your standard report and then manipulate it to get to just the information that you want to see and be able to track that independently without having to talk to IT or create a new report. You
Mm-hmm.
also have the ability to create brand new reports from scratch from data sets that you have access to. And getting into the super users, again, if they use the Power BI desktop, which again is a free download from the Microsoft Store, they can connect to their own data sources, whether it's Excel, SQL, SharePoint, a website, whatever it may be. There are literally hundreds of connectors that you can use to pull in data. They can pull that in and create their own model sets. It's a very user friendly tool. It uses a lot of graphical interfaces and wizards to walk people through things. And there is a ton of great information out there, including the Dashboard in a Day seminars that many organizations such as MCA sponsor and offer for clients to learn how to unlock the power of Power BI. Moving beyond that, you can actually download the data sets into Excel if you wanted to. So your end users, if they're more familiar with Excel and like those pivot tables better, can pull down that exact data that you've prepared for them and be able to manipulate it that way. So it's a very user friendly tool with some great security restraints that IT can leverage or management can leverage to make sure people aren't going too far off the track and coming up with some crazy numbers. And
Mm-hmm.
the very best part about this is even when you're using a direct query, which is pulling live from the data source, it does not have an automatic write back function. You cannot screw up the source data using Power BI. It simply is not possible. It is a read. The write functionality has to be turned on, and it's a complicated thing to turn on, not something you're going to turn on by accident.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so they're able to read that data. They cannot write back and screw up any of your transactional data, even if you're pulling live out of an MES or an ERP system.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love how we were able to highlight the powerful capabilities of Power BI and also talk about how gathering data, you had mentioned a lot of different data sources from the example of that manufacturer you worked with. Tell me a few ways that, if I have never used Power BI before, what are a few ways I could get started in that area?
Well, Microsoft, of course, has some great tutorials on their website for getting started. And as I mentioned earlier, a number of Microsoft partners, including MCA Connect, offer Dashboard in a Day training, which will get you started from an introduction to here's Power BI. So there is really almost unlimited free training out there, or very accessible training from Microsoft partners who have, extensive training and credentialing in the area of Power BI that can help you get up and running very quickly.
Something else to consider is that MCA Connect has a data platform that is built on Power BI. And so, Jonathan, what are your thoughts around that?
Well, Dag, I'm glad you asked about that. The Inspire platform that we're launching is actually one of the tools that this client is actively looking into as the next step on their data journey. Using that data lake and Delta Lakehouse technology that Inspire uses would easily allow them to integrate their project management data, their time management data, also a more deep dive into some of their quality data that they're collecting, and using that progressive uh, uh, the medallion approach, moving through bronze, silver, and gold to prepare and validate that data, consolidating it all into one single source of truth for them, and putting it out into Power BI. And with it being built on that Delta Lake technology, you get that very robust platform, but the cost through the Azure licensing is considerably less than you would have with a traditional platform with similar functionality.
That sounds awesome, Jonathan. I want to say a big thank you to you in distilling some of these more technical concepts into some real life examples, as well as some little bite-sized technology pieces that we can understand. Thank you for joining us for this three-part series on Power Platform. First, we started with Power Apps, where we're able to collaborate better with multiple people, get out of Excel, and consolidate that data also. Then we talked about Power Automate, which is really an awesome workflow and automation tool with almost limitless capability. And then finally, we rounded it out with Power BI and how can we unlock all the data that we have been capturing and using into some, new insights, new opportunities. I appreciate you sticking with us and look forward to speaking to you again.